The sound of gravel crunching under my boots was the only thing I heard that morning. The air was still, quiet, except for the distant hum of a truck engine from down the hill. I stopped to look at the metal sign I had just bolted into the ground. Max load, 6 tons, road not suitable for heavy vehicles. It wasn't fancy, just a clear warning. But to me, it meant peace of mind. The small access road that wound through our cul-de-sac wasn't made for the heavy machinery the HOA kept bringing in for their improvement projects. Every time they sent their garbage truck or landscaping loader up here, my driveway cracked a little more, and the ground, soft clay after years of bad drainage, sagged just enough to worry me. I'd emailed the HOA president, Diane, a dozen times about it. She had that tone in every reply, polite but dripping with superiority. Thank you for your concern, but we've been using that route for years without incident. The HOA board will handle infrastructure decisions. In other words, mind your own business. Still, I put the sign up. Legally. It was my private property line, and I had every right to warn them. My neighbor, Joe, chuckled as I hammered in the last bolt. You think they'll listen? No, I said, tightening the wrench. But at least when it happens, I'll have proof. That proof came sooner than I expected. A week later, I was having coffee when the rumble started. Deep, heavy, wrong. My mug rattled against the countertop. I stepped outside just in time to see the HOA's massive garbage truck rolling toward my bend, the one right above the culvert I'd warned them about. I waved my arms. Hey, you can't take that thing down here. The driver barely looked at me. Behind him, Diane stood with her arms crossed, sunglasses on, like a queen inspecting her kingdom. This is an HOA service road, she said over the engine noise. Your little sign doesn't apply to us. I remember her smirk, that smug, condescending grin. Then came the sound that wiped it off her face, a low, deep crack. Then another. The asphalt buckled under the truck's rear tires. The back end dropped half a foot, then another. The driver slammed the brakes, but it was too late. The ground gave way, slow at first, then like a trapdoor collapsing under its own weight. And there it was, their precious HOA garbage truck, sinking straight into the road I told them not to drive on. Diane's face turned white. Oh my God, what is happening? I folded my arms and said calmly, exactly what I warned you about. The truck hissed, tilted sideways, and stopped halfway down in the mud. The smell of wet earth filled the air, and that's when the shouting started. Mud splashed everywhere as the garbage truck's tires spun uselessly in the sinking ground. The engine roared like a dying animal, but the back wheels just kept sinking deeper. One of the workers jumped out, slipping on the soft edge of asphalt, while Diane barked orders like she was leading a rescue mission. Don't just stand there, get it out, she yelled. The driver, a stocky man in his 40s, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ma'am, if I move this thing, it's going to rip the rear axle clean off. I leaned against my fence, arms crossed. You might want to call a tow before it takes the rest of the road with it. Her head snapped toward me. This is your fault. You should have reinforced this area if you knew it was unstable. I almost laughed. My fault? Diane, I warned you in writing. You ignored the sign, remember? She opened her mouth, closed it, and turned to the truck again. The classic Karen pivot when reality doesn't bend her way. By now, half the neighborhood had come out to watch. Phones were out, kids were whispering, and Joe, from across the street, muttered, "This is better than Netflix." The smell of diesel mixed with the stench of the broken sewer line beneath the road. A loud gurgle echoed as muddy water began seeping up through the cracks. Diane's voice trembled for the first time. "Oh no, what's that smell?" I pointed at the small puddle forming under the truck. "That would be the drainage pipe your board never fixed. You remember the one I emailed you about? 3 times?" She ignored me and pulled out her phone. "We'll handle this internally," she said through clenched teeth. A few minutes later, a tow company showed up. The driver took one look at the truck, the soft ground, the half-collapsed road, and just shook his head. "Lady, if I hook that thing, your whole street's coming with it." The HOA board members started whispering, glancing at me, then back at the truck. The tension was thick enough to choke on. "We'll get this sorted," Diane muttered, brushing mud off her blazer. "Sure," I said. "Just make sure to document it this time." As I turned to go back inside, one of the workers slipped again, and the truck lurched another few inches downward with a sickening crack. The sound echoed through the cul-de-sac. Everyone froze. And that's when Joe said the words that would haunt the HOA all week. "I think it's not just stuck. I think it's sinking." Diane's face went pale. The road groaned like it was alive, and then the corner of the asphalt caved completely, swallowing the back end of the truck whole. The screams, the gasps, the chaos, it all blurred together. But through it all, one thing was clear. They were finally realizing I'd been right. By the next morning, the HOA had turned the scene into a full-blown crisis zone. Caution tape, flashing hazard cones, 2 tow trucks, and a dozen panicked board members crowded the street. The garbage truck was still wedged in the pit like a trapped whale, half submerged in mud, the other half tilting dangerously. I stood on my porch, sipping coffee when Diane marched over, clipboard in hand, fake smile locked in place. "We've decided the road collapse is a shared maintenance issue," she announced, like she was reading a courtroom verdict. "So, unfortunately, each homeowner will need to contribute to the repair cost." I almost spit my coffee. "Wait, what? Your truck destroyed it? How is that on the homeowners?" "The HOA maintains communal areas. The damage occurred within the HOA's jurisdiction," she said smoothly, avoiding eye contact. "So yes, you'll be receiving an assessment letter this week." I couldn't help but laugh. "And let me get this straight. You ignore my warning, destroy my property line, sink your own truck, and now I have to pay for it." Her voice sharpened. "You installed that illegal sign without board approval." "Illegal? It's on my property," I snapped back. A few neighbors nearby started filming. Diane noticed and quickly toned down her voice. "Let's not make a scene, Mr. Harris. The board has this under control." Behind her, the tow crew was arguing. One guy shouted, "If we pull this thing wrong, it's taking the whole culvert with it." I walked closer to the site. From up close, it was worse than I thought. The asphalt around the truck had spider-webbed into cracks, and muddy water bubbled up through the seams. The whole section of road was slowly caving in. "You're not fixing this with a shovel and excuses," I said quietly. "That entire stretch needs to be rebuilt. And you know what? I'm done warning you." Diane gave me that condescending smirk again. "We'll see what the insurance says." And just like that, she turned and strutted off, heels squelching in the mud. That's when Joe came jogging up, phone in hand. "Hey, check this out," he whispered. He showed me a video, the HOA board last night, trying to push the truck out with their own cars before calling the tow company. The footage showed the road collapsing under the headlights. "They tried to move it themselves," Joe said. "They made it way worse." I smiled slowly. Perfect. That video was my golden ticket. I uploaded it to our neighborhood group chat, with one caption: "HOA ignored safety warnings. Now their own truck is buried." Within an hour, the post blew up. Comments, outrage, screenshots. Everyone saw the truth. By sunset, a local news van was parked right in front of Diane's house. Her cover-up had just gone public. By the time Channel 9 News showed up, the HOA's polished image had already cracked wider than the road itself. A reporter in a blue blazer stood near the wreckage, mic in hand, while the cameraman zoomed in on the half-sunken garbage truck still lodged in the mud. "Residents claim their warnings were ignored," she said into the camera. "And now an HOA-owned vehicle has caused thousands in property damage." I watched from my porch as Diane tried to compose herself in front of the lens. Her makeup couldn't hide the sweat on her forehead. "It's just an unfortunate accident," she told the reporter. "We're working closely with local contractors to repair the damage." Then the reporter turned to me. "Sir, you're the homeowner who installed the warning sign, correct?" I nodded, keeping my tone calm. "Yes, I warned them weeks ago. I sent emails, photos, even offered to help reinforce the area myself. They said it wasn't my concern." The reporter's eyes widened slightly. "And that sign was ignored?" "Completely. In fact, they told me to take it down." Behind us, the tow crew finally managed to pull the truck free. The road made one last crack before a section of asphalt completely collapsed into the culvert below, taking part of the sidewalk with it. The reporter turned back to the camera, her voice rising with drama. "There you have it. A costly mistake that could have been avoided. The HOA board scattered like ants. Some ran to make calls, others just stared in disbelief. Diane, though, just stood there, motionless. Her perfect posture gone, her authority slipping like mud under her heels." Later that evening, I got an email. Short, cold, and official. Subject: temporary suspension of HOA president duties. Body: effective immediately. Diane Richardson has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation into mismanagement and negligence of HOA property. I couldn't help but grin. A few days later, contractors arrived to rebuild the road, this time under city supervision. They reinforced the soil, laid down a proper foundation, and even installed a brand new drainage line. Guess who paid for it? Not me, not the neighbors. The HOA's insurance. The irony, they had to install a new official weight limit sign. The exact same one I'd put up weeks earlier. Joe and I watched from our lawns as the workers bolted it in. Looks familiar, he said, smirking. Yeah, I replied. Guess it's official now. As the last bolt tightened, the foreman looked over and asked, "You're the guy who warned them, right?" Guilty as charged. Well, he said, chuckling, they should have listened. That night, I sat on my porch, the smell of new asphalt in the air, watching the streetlights reflect off the repaired road. Peaceful, quiet, the same road that had been ignored, mocked, and finally respected. Sometimes karma doesn't roar. Sometimes it just sinks quietly into the ground. Don't forget to subscribe to Karen Edition for more dramatic HOA and Karen stories. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, which moment impressed you the most?